Everyone nowadays talks about meditation like it's some strange talent you need to develop, some weird skill you have to practice like learning piano or figuring out calculus. But here's the funny thing. The second you start trying to do it, you've already completely missed what it's all about. You can't meditate. You just can't. The whole attempt is the problem itself. Why? Because you, that little voice chattering away in your head, that ego, that sense of being someone separate, that's exactly what stands in the way of meditation happening. Thinking is just talking to yourself, nothing more. It's like having a conversation with nobody but yourself inside your own skull. And as long as that conversation keeps running, you stay stuck in a fake world made of symbols and labels and ideas about life instead of actually living life itself. Reality isn't a thought. It's not some word you can say or write down. Reality is right now, this exact moment, and your thinking mind can never catch it because the mind only makes copies of things. It never touches the real thing directly. The problem is that most folks try to meditate by fighting with their own thoughts. They sit there in their meditation positions, clenching their jaws, trying desperately to shut up the noise in their heads, attempting to force themselves into some peaceful state. But that's like trying to make choppy water smooth by hitting it with a board. The harder you smack it, the more waves you create. No, you can't meditate through effort and struggle. You can only let meditation happen naturally. It's like listening to music without trying to analyze every note, without naming what you hear, without grabbing onto anything, just pure listening, just pure being. And when you stop trying so hard, meditation shows up all by itself without you doing anything at all. Most people are absolutely hooked on thinking. That endless noise inside your head, words and pictures and symbols, it just never shuts up. It's literally like talking to yourself non-stop. Now think about it. If you're constantly talking, you can never hear what anyone else is saying. And if you're constantly thinking, you never let yourself experience what's actually real. All you've got are your thoughts about reality, which are just copies, not the real thing itself. You're living inside a map and thinking it's the actual place. You're stuck in a world of symbols that point to things but aren't the things themselves. You look at a tree and immediately your mind says tree. But that word tree isn't the actual living, breathing, swaying, rustling thing standing there in front of you. It's just a noise, a convenient tag you stick on it. This is the basic trick your mind plays on you. By constantly labeling everything, your mind separates you from what's actually happening. It creates a gap, a huge canyon between you and the world, between the one who's looking and what's being looked at. And in that gap, you feel disconnected. You feel lonely, cut off from a universe that you're actually not separate from at all. It's quite strange when you think about it. We spend our whole lives trying to describe things, to name things, to control things. But reality doesn't need your commentary. It just is what it is. And when you're endlessly thinking, you're living in a kind of dream, never actually touching life directly, just talking to yourself about it constantly. This is the first huge obstacle to meditation. As long as this inner chatter keeps going, you're just watching your own mental movie, never actually participating in the real living moment that's happening right now. So what is reality then? That's a weird question because the moment you ask it, you've already moved away from the answer. Reality isn't something your thoughts can grab onto. It's not something language can capture or any idea can contain. The second you put a name on it, you've made it smaller. Words chop things up, sort them into boxes, create boundaries where none actually exist. The real world isn't made of separate things or separate events. Those are inventions your mind creates. Out there, everything is just happening. One incredible flow of movement and change, endlessly dancing and wiggling and flowing into itself. Take the stars up in the night sky. We look up and see constellations, patterns, pictures. But the stars aren't actually grouped together up there. That grouping only exists in your head. The divisions, the patterns, the shapes, all of it is something you're projecting onto the sky. Reality itself doesn't make those distinctions. In truth, there's no real difference between you and what you call the outside world. The idea that I am something trapped inside this bag of skin, separate from everything else out there, is just an illusion, a convenient story. You are as much the sunlight as you are the eyes seeing it. You are as much the air around you as the breath moving through your lungs. But the ego loves this division. Here I am, and there's the world. This separation is why we feel anxious, why we fight with life, why we're always trying to control everything. But reality, the actual reality underneath all our thoughts, is totally free from all this nonsense. It's not spiritual or material. It's not this or that. It simply is. And the moment you stop trying to grab it, to pin it down with words, you start to actually taste it, to feel it directly. Now let's talk about this thing we call the ego, the I, the separate self that most people think they are. The ego isn't actually a thing. It's not some creature hiding inside your brain, pulling levers and pushing buttons. The ego is a social agreement, a hallucination created by your constant thinking. It's just the thought of I, and when you look at it closely, really examine it, you find there's nothing solid there. It's just a pattern of tension, a constant effort to identify with things and control things. When you think, you create the image of someone behind the thoughts doing the thinking. When you feel something, you create the idea of someone behind the feelings doing the feeling. But these are only ideas, mental constructs. Thoughts don't need a thinker any more than lightning needs someone to make it happen. Thoughts just pop up by themselves, spontaneously, like clouds forming in the sky. The trouble starts when we identify with this mental construct. When we believe the ego is real and solid and permanent, that identification creates all kinds of problems. It creates fear. It creates this desperate need to control everything, to improve ourselves, to protect something that doesn't actually have any independent existence. The tragedy is that the ego is exactly what tries to meditate, and that's the cosmic joke. The very thing that wants to let go can't let go, because letting go would mean its own death, its own disappearance. Meditation can't be done by the ego. The moment you approach meditation as something you must do, as a task to accomplish your feeding, the very illusion that needs to evaporate. Meditation isn't something you achieve or attain. It's something that happens when the ego gets tired and finally falls silent. This is where so many people get lost. They sit down to meditate with tight faces, clenched teeth, and worried minds determined to stop their thoughts, to silence the noise inside. But this very act of trying is itself the noise. Trying to meditate is like trying to smooth rough water by pressing on it with an iron. The more you press, the more ripples you make. The water would settle perfectly on its own if you just left it alone. Same thing with your mind. People imagine meditation means having no thoughts, that a blank, empty mind is the goal. But thoughts aren't really a problem any more than birds chirping outside or cars driving past. They're just happenings, part of the great orchestra of life. You don't need to push them away. You don't need to fight them. You simply watch them, like you'd watch clouds drifting across the sky, or leaves falling from trees. You let thoughts come, and let them go without judging them, without grabbing onto them, without labeling them. Meditation happens naturally when you stop interfering with yourself. When you stop trying to meditate, that's when you're actually meditating. It's a paradox, a contradiction that somehow makes perfect sense. The ego wants to be the boss, to be in control even of its own surrender. But surrender isn't something the ego can perform. Surrender is what emerges when the ego dissolves like sugar in water. So let go of the effort. Let your mind be however it is. And like a tired bird that eventually stops singing, your thoughts will settle down when you leave them undisturbed. Meditation is the art of doing nothing, the grace of simply being here without trying to be somewhere else. So if meditation isn't about doing something, what is it? It's simply being present with whatever is happening right now, without this compulsion to change it, to judge it, or to fix it. It's basically deep listening. You close your eyes and let the world pour into you like water filling a cup. You hear the distant hum of traffic far away, the whisper of wind through leaves, the gentle rhythm of your own heartbeat. And you don't name these sounds. You don't sort them into categories. You simply receive them like a gift. You let your senses play freely without your mind constantly commenting on everything. You let your breath breathe itself without trying to control it or manipulate it. You let your body exist exactly as it is, with all its aches and tensions and sensations, without trying to improve anything or resist anything. This is the art of doing nothing, of non-doing. You're not forcing anything to happen. You're not aiming for some particular state of mind. You're not trying to achieve peace or enlightenment or bliss or anything else. You're simply allowing whatever is happening to happen. And when you allow things to be as they are, something remarkable occurs. The boundary between yourself and the world starts to soften and blur. The rigid lines dissolve like ice melting. You no longer feel like a separate observer watching life from behind your eyeballs. You become part of the happening itself instead. The breath, the sounds, the thoughts, all become part of one continuous process, one flowing movement. In this experience, you rediscover your original nature, which is effortless, spontaneous, utterly free. You're not a fragment trapped in a meat bag called me. You're actually a manifestation of the whole universe, like a wave appearing on the vast ocean of existence. Meditation isn't a task to master like learning to juggle. It's a mystery to sink into, to dissolve into. It's the effortless grace of simply being here now without wishing you were anywhere else. One of the simplest and most beautiful ways to slip into this effortless state is through listening. Not listening for something specific, not listening to identify what you're hearing, just pure listening. Sound is wonderful because it demands nothing from you. The world is completely full of sounds, and they're happening whether you pay attention or not. Cars passing by, wind moving through branches, the rustling of wire, our own breathing. It's all constantly there. And if you simply let your ears open up, just open without effort, you start hearing these sounds not as interruptions or distractions, not as separate isolated incidents, but as one continuous symphony. You don't label them anymore. You don't think, oh, that's a bird, oh, that's a car horn, oh, that's my stomach growling. No, you allow sound to be pure vibration, pure sensation. You listen like you'd listen to music, not analyzing or thinking about it, just receiving it, absorbing it. And if you find yourself thinking, which you definitely will because that's what minds do, you listen to your thoughts as if they too were sounds. Like interior humming, like birds chirping outside your window. You don't try to suppress them or push them away, but you also don't get caught up in them and follow them down rabbit holes. You let them come and you let them go like clouds passing across the sky. In the simple act of listening without grabbing, without commenting in your head, you fall effortlessly into meditation. Your mind stops struggling. The ego, which always wants to understand everything, to control everything, to manipulate everything, finds nothing to hold on to. And slowly, quietly, it starts to disappear. You discover through this listening that you're not actually a separate listener standing apart from the world of sound. You're simply part of the vibration itself. The ears and the sound are one process, one event, not two separate things. Meditation happens when you listen not to achieve silence or peace, but simply to hear the music of existence playing itself. Breathing holds a deep secret that most people completely take for granted. After all, breathing happens constantly, every moment of every day and night, without you consciously doing it. Yet at any time you can choose to change it, to hold your breath, breathe deeply, to speed it up or slow it down. It exists in this strange in-between zone, both under your control and completely independent of it at the same time. This peculiar nature of breathing offers a glimpse into the artificial division between what we call self and what we call world, between me and everything else. Usually there's a firm line in our minds. On one side, things I do voluntarily. On the other side, things that just happen to me. But breathing messes up that neat separation. Am I breathing, or is breathing just happening through me? The more carefully you observe this rhythm of breath, the more that old division starts to blur and fade away. Breathing isn't some isolated act, performed by a little me trapped inside a body. It's part of a much larger process, a vast cycle. The air entering your lungs was stirred by trees and plants. The oxygen being carried into your bloodstream was once part of a great dance involving oceans and forests and sunlight streaming down from the sky. Breathing is you participating in a cosmic circulation that connects everything. This realization extends way beyond just respiration. Your entire body, the beating of your heart, the movement of your digestive system, even the tiny involuntary twitches of your muscles, all of it operates as this intricate system that never once asked for your permission or your help. The thought that you're in control is just a narrow beam of conscious attention scanning across the vast mystery of your existence. Here's one of the great revelations of meditation. As you simply watch your breath, neither guiding it nor interfering with it, understanding dawns that the apparent boundary between what I'm doing and what's happening to me is completely arbitrary, made up. The breath breathes itself. And in that effortless flow, the illusion of a separate controller starts to dissolve like morning mist. This isn't just a philosophical idea or a concept. It's something you directly experience when your attention settles into stillness and quiet. Watching the breath without interfering is like a mirror reflecting life itself. Life moves through you constantly. Your heart beats without your help. Your lungs fill without your instruction. Sensations arise without your permission. None of this requires your effort or your control. And in that effortless happening, there's no solid eye pulling the strings behind the scenes. There's only the continuous dance of existence, the ongoing flow of life expressing itself. As this understanding deepens and becomes more than just an idea, meditation stops being a practice of control or discipline. It becomes a surrender to what has always been unfolding without your interference, without your management. People are always trying to get somewhere else. They imagine life is like a journey, a long road leading towards some final destination, whether that's enlightenment, or success, or salvation, or ultimate happiness. But this entire way of thinking is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of what life actually is. In music, the purpose isn't to reach the end of the song as fast as possible. If it was, the best musicians would be the ones who played fastest, who rushed through the piece to get to the final note. But that would be absurd. The meaning of music is in the playing itself, in the unfolding of each note, each pause, each swell and fade. The joy of music exists in the movement, in the flowing patterns of sound happening right now. The same is true of dancing. Nobody dances to arrive at a particular spot on the floor and then stop. If that was the purpose, people would just walk to that spot by the shortest route and stand there. The dance exists entirely for its own sake. The movement itself is the meaning, the purpose, the point. But most people approach life as if it were a race, as if everything exists for the sake of arriving somewhere better, somewhere else, somewhere in the future. This constant striving keeps them perpetually unsatisfied, forever chasing a tomorrow that never actually comes, because tomorrow is always one day away, and the horizon keeps receding as you try to approach it. You never actually get there. In truth, life is much more like dancing than like traveling to a destination. Every moment is complete in itself. Every experience is the point, not a stepping stone to something else. The striving itself creates the illusion that something's missing, that you're incomplete. The moment you imagine there's something to attain, something to achieve, you step out of the flow of life and become anxious, restless, disconnected from what's actually happening. Meditation reveals this directly and unmistakably. When you sit quietly, not chasing thoughts around, not grasping for results or achievements, you discover that the present moment is entirely sufficient, completely whole. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing to achieve or accomplish. The now contains everything you need. This is why genuine meditation has no goal, no destination. The ego, always concerned with self-improvement and progress, demands to see results. It wants to meditate to become wiser, more peaceful, more spiritually advanced, more enlightened. But this desire is rooted in the illusion of becoming, of moving towards some imagined, endpoint in the future. In stillness, it becomes crystal clear that you're already here. There is no elsewhere. There never was. Life isn't a path leading somewhere. It's a rhythm happening now. It's not a pursuit or a quest. It's a play, a game, a dance. And when you see this clearly, when you really get it, the weight of constant striving lifts off your shoulders and disappears, replaced by the simple joy of being fully present, fully engaged in the dance of existence happening right this moment. For most people, the great fear beneath all other fears is death, the notion of slipping into eternal nothingness, of being completely extinguished like a candle flame blown out. The mind creates this terrifying image of endless darkness, a vast empty void where no experience exists anymore. But this fear is built on a false premise, on the assumption that there exists a solid, separate I that can be lost or destroyed. Ask yourself this question. Where were you before you were born? Can you remember any sense of not existing? Of course not. There was no awareness of absence, no experience of emptiness. Just like you have no awareness right now of what your liver is doing or how planets are turning in space. Things happen without your knowing them, without your effort or awareness. When you imagine death, you're projecting the idea of continued awareness into a state where awareness itself is completely absent. But non-existence isn't an experience you can have. You don't experience being dead any more than you experienced not yet being born before your birth. Consider deep sleep, dreamless sleep. When you're deep in that state, where does you go? Where is the I? There's no fear there, no longing, no pain, only an absence of all differentiation, of all separation. Then you wake up, and the world appears again, as if summoned back into being from nowhere. But in truth, the world was never actually separate from you. Birth and death aren't absolute boundaries marking a beginning and an end. They're movements in a continuous flow, like waves rising and falling on the ocean. Each individual being emerges and dissolves back into the great totality, the great whole. The wave was never actually separate from the ocean. It was always water, always part of the larger movement, the larger dance. This sense of separation, of being a distinct isolated entity navigating through a foreign world, is the root of all suffering. The ego insists on its independence, on its separateness. But this independence is an illusion maintained by constant thinking. When thinking quiets down and falls silent, the illusion dissolves, and what remains is unity, oneness, wholeness. In the deepest silence, when all the mental chatter stops, you see clearly that life and death aren't opposites fighting each other. They're complements, two sides of the same coin, parts of a single process that has no beginning or end. The universe breathes beings in and breathes them out again, like inhaling and exhaling. Each birth isn't a new separate other arriving into existence. It's another face of the same underlying reality, another expression of the one existence. When this is understood, not just as an idea or a philosophy, but as something directly felt and experienced, death loses its sting, its terror. The fear of annihilation melts away like ice in sunshine, replaced by quiet wonder at being part of an eternal, unbroken whole. Nothing has actually been gained or lost. There's only this endless, marvelous happening, this continuous dance of existence. The essence of meditation, indeed the essence of all wisdom, lies in letting go. Not as a technique you practice, not as something you must force yourself to do, but as the natural result of understanding the complete impossibility of control. From childhood, we're taught to grasp, to hold tightly, to seek security and mastery and permanence. The mind clings to ideas, to possessions, to identities and labels. The ego constructs its fortress of me and mine, always vigilant, always tense, always on guard. But the harder you hold on to things, the more fragile ever. My thing becomes. Letting go isn't an act of sacrifice. It's not resignation or defeat or giving up. It's liberation from an impossible task, from the futile effort to control what was never truly yours to manage in the first place. Life moves according to its own nature, its own rhythm. Thoughts arise unbidden, without your permission. Sensations fluctuate constantly. Circumstances shift and change without consulting you first. The world dances freely, and you are never its master, never its controller. Meditation reveals this truth by allowing everything to be exactly as it is. Thoughts wander wherever they want. Emotions stir and move through you. Sounds fill the space around you. Yet none of it requires your interference or your management. The breath breathes itself without your help. The heart beats on without your instruction. The world continues to turn without your supervision. And as this truth sinks deeper and deeper into your being, the compulsion to manage every tiny detail of existence slowly dissolves and disappears. True freedom emerges not from domination or control, but from participation, from becoming part of the flow instead of standing apart from it trying to direct it. The separation between self and world softens and blurs until the boundary disappears altogether and you can't tell where you end and the world begins. When the grip of control loosens and finally lets go, something remarkable is discovered underneath all the struggle. There's a profound harmony beneath the apparent chaos and disorder. Even conflicts and pains and losses reveal their place in the greater rhythm, the larger pattern. The so-called discord of life is simply the necessary contrast that gives rise to the beauty of the whole, like shadows defining light or silence defining music or valleys giving meaning to mountains. This is why the great spiritual traditions speak of enlightenment, not as an attainment or an achievement, but as a return, a coming back home, a return to what was always present, always here, just hidden beneath the restless grasping of thought, beneath the constant commentary of the mind. It's the simple recognition that you're already home, that you've never left, that you're already part of the totality that requires no improvement, no fixing, no perfecting. In letting go completely, the heavy burden of being a separate self dissolves like salt in water. There's no longer anyone struggling to meditate, no one seeking to arrive somewhere, no one trying to become something better. There's only the effortless grace of being, utterly complete, profoundly free, exactly as you are. And so at last we arrive back where we started, coming full circle. The great misunderstanding, the fundamental confusion, is that meditation is a tool, a technique, a means by which you might become more peaceful, more enlightened, more successful, or somehow more perfected than you are now. This is the language of constant striving, the subtle whisper of the ego still plotting its escape from the present moment, still seeking to improve itself as though it were a broken machine in need of repair or upgrade. But meditation, in its truest, deepest form, has absolutely nothing to do with self-improvement. It's not a ladder you climb rung by rung. It's not a technique to acquire more control or more mastery over yourself. The very impulse to get better, to improve, to become something more, is precisely what keeps you trapped in restlessness and dissatisfaction. The truth is wonderfully, beautifully simple. There's nothing to attain. There never was anything to achieve. The search itself is the obstacle blocking your way. The striving itself is the suffering you're trying to escape. The illusion is simply the idea that this moment you see as it is right now could somehow be incomplete or insufficient or wrong. Meditation is simply allowing life to be exactly as it is, without resistance, without fighting, without wishing things were different. It's not a practice of becoming something new, it's a practice of dissolving, of melting away. Dissolving the illusion of the separate self that thinks it's trapped inside a body. Dissolving the clinging mind that forever chases after a better future that never arrives. When that dissolves completely, what remains is simply the present moment, not as a concept or an idea, not as a particular moment in time, but as the timeless reality of pure being, of pure existence. This is why it has been said throughout the ages that when you stop trying to meditate, meditation happens spontaneously. Not because you've achieved something or accomplished some goal, but because you've relinquished the effort, you've given up the struggle. The silence was always there underneath the noise of grasping and striving. The peace was always present beneath the turbulence of wanting and seeking. Life is not a problem needing to be solved. It's not a puzzle you have to figure out. It's not a journey that must be completed before you can rest. It's music to be heard right now. It's a dance to be danced this very moment. It's an unfolding that requires no purpose beyond itself, no justification, no explanation. And in this very moment, as you sit wherever you are, as you breathe in and out, as sounds arise around you and fade away, as sensations move through your body, meditation is already occurring naturally. No effort is necessary. No attainment is waiting in the future. There's only this, only now, only the simple fact of being alive and aware. The play of existence continues endlessly, and you, like a wave appearing momentarily on the vast ocean, are part of its endless, effortless rhythm. You are the universe experiencing itself, knowing itself, celebrating itself. And that has always been enough. That will always be enough. There's nowhere else to go and nothing else to become. You're already home. You always have been. You just forgot for a little while, lost in the dream of separation, lost in the trance of thinking. But now, in this moment of stillness, in this gap between thoughts, you remember. You recognize what you've always been underneath all the confusion and seeking. And in that recognition, everything becomes clear, simple, and utterly complete.